I met Daniel on a Thursday night in one of those Facebook groups where people send memes because they're too proud to admit they're lonely. It started with a joke. I left a comment under a post about things that only people from our country understand: blackouts, bucket baths, counting coins at the grocery store. He reacted to my comment with a laughing emoji, then replied with something clever. I replied. Within an hour, we were in Messenger. A week later, we'd moved on to voice notes. His profile showed a man in his 30s with a neatly trimmed beard, warm brown eyes, and a shiny car behind him. The caption on one photo said, "Started from nothing, never going back." He lived up north, as we called it, a richer country where the sidewalks weren't cracked and supermarkets looked like they belonged in movies. At first, I thought he was like any other guy online, just bored after work. But he remembered things, the brand of instant coffee I drank, my little brother's name, the way my mother liked to fall asleep with novellas playing in the background. He asked about my job at the clothing shop and didn't just say, "At least you have work." Instead, he said, "You're too smart to be working that hard for that little. You deserve more than surviving." Nobody had ever said that to me. Most people at home were so busy surviving that dreaming felt almost disrespectful. We talked every day. Morning voice notes before his shift started, messages on my lunch break, late calls when the power allowed. The days I didn't hear from him felt hollow, like I'd misplaced a piece of myself. Then one night, his tone changed. "You know I'm serious about you, right?" he said in a voice note. His voice was low, calm, almost shy. I laughed it off. "Serious how? You've never even met me." "I don't need to be standing in front of you to know what I want," he said. "But I also don't want you stuck there forever. I've been thinking, what if you came here?" I sat on my bed, back against the chipped green wall, and tried to imagine myself somewhere else, somewhere where the lights stayed on, and you didn't have to choose between real milk and bus fare. "Daniel, that's not easy," I said on the call the next night. "Visas, tickets, money. That's my problem," he said gently. "Not yours. I know people who can help with a tourist visa. You stay with me. You see how you like it. If it doesn't work, you go home. At least you'll know you tried." He made it sound like trying a new hairstyle, reversible, safe. "That's crazy," I whispered. "Crazy," he said, "is staying where you are and hoping things change." If you're listening to this thinking, "I would never fall for that," I want you to remember something. It doesn't start with control. It starts with comfort, with someone finally seeing how exhausted you are and offering you a door out. By the way, if you like stories where the villain tries to set the trap and ends up falling face first into it instead, make sure you stick with this one. And if you're listening on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe, because this is exactly the kind of cold, calculated revenge we tell here. Back to Daniel. The visa process moved fast, too fast now that I look back. He sent money for the fees, told me which agency to use, texted me exactly what to say at the embassy. "Don't mention me," he said. "If they know you have a boyfriend there, they'll think you're trying to stay illegally. Say you're going as a tourist, shopping, sightseeing. Simple." People in my neighborhood always said the embassy was looking for reasons to say no, so his advice made sense. He stayed on the phone with me the night before my interview until 2 a.m, repeating answers, correcting tiny details, coaching me until his voice was the only thing I heard when I closed my eyes. A month later, my passport came back with that small, shiny sticker that changed everything. I sent him a photo. He called immediately. "You did it, Mirena," he said. "Pack light. Bring what you need. I'll take care of the rest." My mother cried when I told her I was leaving. I told her I was going for 3 weeks to visit a friend. "Promise you'll come back," she said, holding my hands like she was afraid I'd slip away, even in that moment. People leave and forget where they came from. "I'm not like that," I said. I had no idea that forgetting wasn't the danger. Being erased was. The airport felt like another planet. Loud announcements, bright lights, people rolling expensive suitcases like it was nothing. I clutched my small bag, checking my passport over and over, convinced it could somehow disappear between the check-in desk and the gate. 2 flights later, I stepped into air that felt cleaner and colder than anything back home. My heart raced as I walked through arrivals, searching for the sign with my name. For a few seconds, I didn't see him and panic rose in my throat. People reunited around me, hugging and laughing. I stood there alone. Then I heard my name. "Anna." I turned. It was him. Taller than in the photos, but otherwise exactly the same. Same eyes, same easy smile, same confident way of moving through space like he belonged wherever he went. He wrapped me in a hug that was warm and solid and smelled like cologne and winter. "You made it," he said into my hair. "You're really here." For a moment, the months of messages, the risk, the borrowed money, the lies I'd told at home, everything felt worth it. He took my suitcase and led me to the parking garage. His car was even nicer in person. Black, shining, expensive looking. He opened the passenger door with a small bow. "From now on," he said, grinning, "you don't walk alone." Later, I would remember that sentence differently, not as protection, but as a promise of a cage. On the way to his apartment, he asked for my phone. "Let me put my number as your emergency contact and set up the GPS to my place," he said. "Also, I got you a local SIM. Your old one will be too expensive here." It sounded thoughtful, helpful, like he had planned ahead. He swapped my SIM, tapped through some settings, and handed the phone back. "There," he said. "Now you're connected." His apartment was exactly like the pictures. A white couch, a big flat-screen TV, shiny kitchen counters, soft rug. What the photos hadn't shown were the extra locks on the door, 2 bolts and a latch high up, or the cameras in the hallway outside. "Safe building," he said proudly. "Nobody comes in or out without it being recorded." He showed me the bedroom, his bedroom. Big bed, neat drawers, everything in its place. "Our room," he corrected, watching my face. "Unless you don't want to share yet. We can take it slow. I just want you to feel at home." I told myself it was romantic, thoughtful, mature. I had crossed a border to be with him. Starting our relationship in separate rooms felt almost silly. That first night, I lay beside him in the dark, listening to the low hum of the heater and the quiet city outside. No barking dogs, no motorcycles, just the faint sound of a car passing now and then. I should have been excited. Instead, I felt like I was standing at the edge of something too big to see the bottom of. Still, when he brought me coffee and eggs in the morning, humming along to music on his phone, I let myself believe what he said. "You see?" He smiled, setting the plate in front of me. "This is the life you deserve." The first week felt like proof that he was right. He took me to the supermarket he'd shown me in photos. The aisles went on forever, full of things I'd only seen on TV. "Get whatever you want," he kept saying, pushing the cart. "You're with me now." He showed me the bus routes on Google Maps, pointed out parks and stores. "You can go out during the day if you want," he said. "Just text me where you are. It's a different country. I worry." He introduced me to a couple of his friends as my girl from back home. They shook my hand, told me I was lucky, asked how I was liking the city. At night, we watched movies curled up on the couch. Sometimes he would pause a scene and explain a joke or slang in English so I wouldn't feel left out. The first time he snapped at me, it seemed so small that I almost forgot it. I was washing dishes and chipped a plate by accident. The sound of ceramic hitting the sink made both of us jump. "Careful," he shouted, sharper than I'd ever heard him. "Do you know how much those cost here?" "I'm sorry," I said immediately. It just slipped. He grabbed the plate from my hand and examined it like it was a ruined relic. Then he slammed it down on the counter. "Sorry doesn't fix things in this country," he muttered. "You have to be more careful. This isn't your mom's house." The way he said "your mom's house" made my stomach twist. But a few minutes later, he came back, hugged me from behind, kissed my neck, and apologized. "I overreacted," he said. "Work has me stressed. You did nothing wrong. I just want us to build something good here, you know?" It felt like an isolated moment. Everybody gets stressed, I told myself. Everybody says things they don't mean. I let it go. I did the same thing a week later when my mom called. Because of the time difference, she usually called when he was home in the evening. I went to the bedroom to talk so the TV wouldn't overlap with her voice. We talked in Spanish about the neighbors, my brother, the new woman renting the room next door in our building. I was laughing at something she said when the TV in the living room suddenly got loud. I covered one ear and tried to concentrate, but the noise drowned her out. "I can't hear you well," she said. "Are you outside?" "No, I'm inside. Hold on." I walked toward the door and peeked into the hallway. Daniel was sitting on the couch, staring at the TV with the volume almost at maximum. "Can you turn it down a bit?" I asked. "I'm talking to my mom." "You can talk in here," he yelled back over the noise. "Why are you hiding in the bedroom?" I ended the call quickly, promising my mother I'd call her back. "What was that?" I asked, standing in front of him after I hung up. "What was what?" he said without looking away from the screen. "The volume. I couldn't hear anything." "You're in my living room," he said with a shrug. "If you need silence, go to the bedroom." "You turned it up when I called," I said. "It wasn't that loud before." He clicked the TV off so suddenly, the silence rang in my ears. Then he turned to me slowly. "Are you accusing me of something, Anna?" His tone wasn't loud, but it was dangerous. "You talk to your mom for an hour about people you don't even like," he said. "I work all day. I come home. I want to relax with my girl. And if I touch the remote, suddenly I'm the bad guy." "She misses me," I said more quietly now. "I used to see her every day. And I'm right here," he snapped, jabbing a finger at his chest. "Your future is here, not there. If you want to live in the past, why did you come?" He saw my hurt, and his expression softened like he'd pressed a button. "Hey," he said, standing and pulling me into a hug. "I'm not saying don't talk to her. Just don't make it your whole life. We're trying to build something. You can't have one foot here and one foot back there forever." That night, lying in bed, I told myself it was cultural differences. People here were more direct. Maybe I was being too sensitive. Maybe you had to let go of some of your old life to make space for a new one. I didn't recognize it yet as what it was. A slow, careful cutting of every string that wasn't tied to him. The more my visa days passed, the more that cutting sharpened. One Monday, he came home early, still in his work clothes, frowning. "Your visa," he said, dropping my passport on the table. "We need to talk about it." I sat down. The sight of my passport always made my chest tight. "What about it?" He opened it, pointing at the sticker. 3 months. That's how long they gave you. And we've already used almost 1. "I know," I said. "You said we'd see how it goes and decide." That's not how it works, he said, annoyed. Immigration doesn't care about how it goes. You can't just stay and hope nobody notices. If they catch you, they deport you. They could knock on the door. They could investigate me because you're here. Fear shot up my spine. What do we do? I asked. He watched me for a second, then sighed like he was about to offer something generous. There are two options, he said, leaning back. One, you go back before it expires. We treat this like a vacation, and you go back to that. The word that carried 100 insults. Or two. He let the silence stretch. Or what? I asked. Or we make it official, he said. We get married, we start your papers. You stay here legally. We don't have to worry about immigration, and we live a real life together. The word married felt like a stone dropped in water. My whole brain rippled around it. We just met in person, I said. It hasn't even been 2 months. We've talked almost a year, he replied. You know me better than anyone back home, don't you? He kept going before I could answer. Think logically, Anna. You left your job, your family, everything. You want to go back with nothing? With people gossiping about how you failed? Or do you stay, build something, and never worry about going hungry again? He knew exactly where to hit. The shame of returning without success, the fear of being a story people whispered about. Just think about it, he said, standing. He picked up my passport and walked to the TV stand. But we don't have forever. Immigration doesn't play, and you... He slid my passport into a drawer and closed it. You can't afford to make the wrong choice. I watched that drawer close like someone had locked a door in my chest. That was the moment he stopped pretending the passport was safe. Now it was leverage. From that day, his control became heavier. He wanted to know where I went, for how long, who I spoke to. If I mentioned a friendly cashier, his jaw tightened. If I came home 5 minutes later than I said, he wanted a detailed explanation. It's not safe for someone like you, he kept saying. No papers, no family. Guys here can smell that. I'm the only one protecting you. Any time I suggested maybe taking an English class or finding a small job, he shut it down. With what documents, he scoffed. You want to get us both in trouble? You're here as a tourist. If they catch you working, that's it. They throw you out. Fear became part of my morning routine. Call my mom, but not too long. Ask for nothing. Don't talk back. Don't forget to take the chicken out of the freezer. Don't say you're bored. Don't mention going home. Little by little, my world shrank to the apartment, the supermarket, the sound of his key in the door. The first time I saw proof that this wasn't just me overthinking was the night his phone lit up while he was in the shower. Until then, I had ignored the occasional notification, a heart emoji from a name I didn't know, a voice note he quickly dismissed as an old friend. Jealousy didn't seem like something I had a right to, not when I was living on his money, on his couch, on his plans. That night, though, the message preview said, "Did you talk to the new girl yet?" My pulse pounded in my ears. Before I could talk myself out of it, I picked up his phone. The passcode was 4 digits, simple, the same one he'd bragged about using for everything because no one here knows my birthday anyway. I opened his chat with Gordo. The messages were like having cold water poured on my face. Gordo. So how's the new one? Daniel. She's here. Same story, from the same country. These girls are desperate, man. Gordo. You moving fast or slow? Daniel. Fast. Visa is short. Need to lock it in. Gordo. Marriage or just work? Daniel. We'll see how obedient she is. The word obedient knifed through me. I scrolled up. They mentioned another girl from last year by name. How long she stayed. how much she sent him after she went back home, how she owed him forever for getting her visa. There were jokes about building a line of women from our country because they're hungry to leave and easy to control once they're here. My entire body felt numb and burning at the same time. I didn't read too far. I didn't need to. The pattern was already clear. I saved screenshots to my phone. My hands shook so badly, I almost dropped his. Then I exited the chat, placed the phone back exactly where it had been, and forced myself to sit on the couch, eyes on the TV, breathing like nothing had happened. He came out of the shower in a towel, hair damp, humming. He glanced at his phone, smiled, tossed it onto the bed, completely unaware that the story he had used on other girls had just stopped working on me. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, listening to his slow breathing next to me, feeling the full weight of the situation building inside my chest. I understood two things very clearly. One, this was never about love. I was part of a system he'd built around vulnerable women like me. Two, if I stayed and did nothing, I was going to be another one of his stories in that chat. A name, a joke, a new one. And if there's one thing I decided that night, it was this. I was not going to be one of his stories. I was going to be his ending. Perfect. Continuing seamlessly. Same voice, same pacing, same emotional intensity, same cinematic prose. No summarizing, no skipping, no rushing. We're moving into the escape arc, to preparation to exposure, to downfall setup. The next morning, I behaved exactly the way Daniel expected me to. Quiet, soft, apologetic for nothing in particular. I made him breakfast, even though my hands shook while cracking the eggs. I laughed at a joke he made about his coworker. I let him kiss my forehead like he was blessing me instead of owning me. A man like Daniel needs to believe he's winning. It's the only time he stops watching closely. When he left for work, the apartment felt too quiet, like the silence was warning me not to waste the opportunity. I sat on the couch, phone in my hand, and asked myself the question that would define everything. If I walk away, what happens next? Not the emotional version, not the panic-soaked version, the real version. If I ran without planning, I would end up in another panic trap, stuck in a different dependency, a different fear. I knew enough from the websites I'd read secretly to know that leaving isn't the victory. Leaving well is. So I made a list, not on paper because he could find it, but in my head. To win, I needed 5 things: a safe place to sleep, a legal pathway to stay in the country, a way to expose his pattern, evidence connecting him to the other women he'd harmed, a method of destroying him that didn't connect back to me emotionally, only legally, because this wasn't going to be a dramatic movie moment. This was going to be paperwork, documentation, testimony, screenshots, timelines, patterns, systems. Cold revenge, the kind that ruins a man layer by layer without a single raised voice. I grabbed my coat and walked out the door. The hallway felt like a tunnel. I kept my face neutral for the cameras, just in case he ever reviewed footage. Outside, the cold air hit me like a warning. Once I reached the bus stop, I turned my phone on and messaged the women's shelter. I need help today. Their reply came within minutes. Come now, we'll meet you at the door. I took 2 buses to get there. On the second bus, an old woman smiled at me. That simple kindness made my throat tighten. It reminded me of my mother, of home, of a life where people weren't puzzles you had to solve to survive. When I arrived at the shelter, the woman who greeted me introduced herself as Carla. She had tired eyes but a warm smile. Hi, Anna, she said softly. Come in. You're safe now. The moment she closed the door behind me, I felt something I hadn't felt since my plane landed. Control. Not over everything, not yet, but over myself. We sat in a small room with mismatched chairs. I told her everything, the visa, the passport in the drawer, the messages on his phone, the threats disguised as advice. She didn't interrupt me. She didn't blame me. She didn't ask why I hadn't left sooner. She just said, "Daniel is dangerous. But what he's doing is not just wrong, it's illegal. You came to the right place." She connected me with a legal clinic. They told me something that made my entire world shift. You are not helpless. You have more rights than he wants you to believe. That sentence felt like oxygen. The lawyer, a sharp woman named Megan, looked through the screenshots, shaking her head slowly. "This isn't a regular breakup," she said. "This is a pattern of coercive control, immigration manipulation, passport withholding, fraud, possibly even the early stages of trafficking." The word made my stomach drop. "Not the movie kind," she clarified. "But the legal definition includes people who use immigration vulnerability to control someone." She tapped the stack of screenshots. "This is evidence, and if he has done this before, which his messages suggest, then he's not just controlling you. He's running a system." A system. Exactly what I had suspected. A system built on women like me, and he thought I would be the next one to fall. Instead, I was going to be the one who burned the whole system to the ground. "Here's what we do," the lawyer continued. "We file a protected report. That locks him in legally. He won't know who filed it." I exhaled shakily. She kept going. "We also request a document return order. Legally, he is not allowed to keep your passport. Immigration takes that very seriously." My heart thudded. "And last," she said, sliding a form toward me, "we begin your own immigration protection process. You have a right to stay safe." Every step felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. But the truth was, Daniel was not the kind of man who quietly let go of control. The lawyer knew it too. She leaned forward and said, "And Anna, we are going to find the other women, because the best revenge against a man like him is the truth, documented, organized, delivered to every agency he's ever lied to." I didn't smile, not yet, but I felt the beginning of one deep inside my chest. Not joy, recognition. The kind of recognition a storm has when it sees itself forming in the distance. Daniel noticed I was gone faster than I expected. When I finally turned my phone on that evening, the notifications stacked themselves one after another. "Where are you? You didn't say you were leaving. Answer me. What's going on? Anna, seriously, where are you? You better not be doing something stupid. If you're with someone else, don't bother coming back. You're making a mistake. There are consequences for disappearing. Immigration won't be happy about this. You need me. Come home now." Each message was another thread being pulled out of the rope he'd tied around my neck. I turned the phone off again. The silence that followed wasn't emptiness. It was freedom. The next morning, the lawyer called me at the shelter. "Good news," she said. "We found 2 women who filed similar complaints. One 3 years ago, one last year." My heart dropped. They had described the same pattern. Met online, brought up north, passport taken. Talk of marriage threats about deportation, dependency, control, financial exploitation, and eventually being pushed out once they were used up and replaced. "We're arranging a joint statement," the lawyer said. "This is exactly the kind of pattern prosecutors take seriously." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "And Anna," she said, her voice softening, "you're not alone. This is bigger than you." I whispered, "I know." I felt it. This was no longer an escape. This was a reckoning. Meanwhile, Daniel was spiraling. My phone was filled with messages like, "You think you're strong? Who helped you get there? You think they'll let you stay? You have nothing without me. Come home, now." He didn't use my name anymore, just commands. And then, rage. The final messages dripped with it. "You ungrateful bitch. After everything I did for you, you want trouble? Fine, I'll give you trouble. You think you can hide? You can't. I always find them. Them." That one word made my blood go cold. Them, meaning the ones before me, meaning the others, meaning this wasn't new, meaning I needed to move fast. The lawyer confirmed it a day later. "He's been looking for you," she said. "Calling shelters, pretending to be your husband, trying to locate you." I swallowed hard. "And the police?" I asked. "They're aware," she said. "And they're building something." "Building what?" I whispered. "A case," she said simply. "The kind a man like Daniel cannot crawl out of." What Daniel didn't know was that we had already started collecting the pieces of his downfall, the screenshots, the messages with Gordo, the other women's testimonies, his threats, his manipulation, proof he withheld passports, proof he arranged illegal visa schemes, proof he financially exploited multiple women, proof he used marriage manipulation as leverage, proof he used immigration fear as a weapon. Everything he'd ever done, documented, everything he ever threatened, recorded, everything he thought was hidden, illuminated. That's when the lawyer looked me straight in the eye and said, "When we're done, Daniel won't just lose you. He'll lose every tool he uses to hurt women. His freedom, his money, his image, his access to immigration systems, his online accounts, his entire pipeline." For the first time since I arrived in that country, I smiled without fear. Not because I was happy, but because Daniel had finally met someone he couldn't control, someone who didn't break, someone who learned how to fight back without lifting a hand, because she used the one thing he never expected, absolutely, continuing seamlessly, cinematically, and emotionally grounded, keeping the same tone, same pacing, same narrative flow. No summarizing, no skipping, no rushing, just pure storytelling that keeps viewers glued. Daniel always believed he was smarter than everyone around him, smarter than the women he brought across borders, smarter than the friends who enabled him, smarter than the system he manipulated, smarter than the authorities he thought he'd never attract. People like him think they can outrun consequences simply because they've never met one that could keep up. But consequences don't always sprint. Sometimes they walk, patient, quiet, steady, one documented step at a time. And that's exactly how Daniel's world started to fracture. It didn't begin with police sirens or banging on doors. It began with the one thing men like him fear most, a phone call they can't control. 3 days after the shelter helped me file the report, I was in the common room folding donated clothes into neat stacks, something to distract my mind, when my lawyer called. "Anna," she said, her voice measured, "something is happening." My spine straightened. "What do you mean?" "We weren't the only ones tracking him." She paused. "Another agency has been watching him for months." My heartbeat ticked faster. "Which agency?" I whispered. "Immigration fraud," she said. "Identity manipulation, and they just reached out." I swallowed, a cold feeling climbing up my throat. "They want to speak to you, today." "Why?" "Because your report," she said, wasn't the first red flag. It was the final piece they needed. I sat down slowly. They already suspected him, I asked. Yes, she replied, but they needed a victim willing to speak. You just broke the case open. My breath stilled. The room felt larger and smaller at the same time. Anna, she added gently, this is the beginning of his downfall. The interview took place in a plain office building on the east side of the city. Brown walls, a humming vending machine, a hallway that smelled faintly of bleach and fatigue. 2 investigators greeted me, both middle-aged, both serious, both the kind of people who could listen without blinking. They let me sit, offered water, closed the door. One of them, Tanner, opened a folder with my name on the tab. We've received multiple reports about Mr. Daniel Reyes, he said. Yours is the most detailed and the most recent. I nodded, hands clasped tightly in my lap. We're building a case involving visa manipulation, coercion, passport withholding, financial exploitation, and potential immigration fraud, he continued. We need you to walk us through everything you told the clinic. So I did. From the first message he ever sent me to the moment he grabbed my jaw and told me I was nothing without him, every detail, every manipulation, every moment I ignored a red flag because I wanted to believe he loved me. They took notes, asked clarifying questions, never once questioning my intelligence or my decisions. Then Tanner opened another file, this one thicker. Anna, he said quietly, you're not the first woman Daniel targeted. My stomach twisted. I had suspected it, but hearing it was different. We have records, he continued, of 2 women he brought here before you. They filed complaints after leaving him. One was too afraid to continue. The other was threatened into silence. I stared at the folder. He tapped it lightly. And there might be more. He's been operating this pattern for a long time. He told his friend there were others, I whispered. We know, Tanner said. Your screenshots match messages we recovered in previous interviews. Another investigator leaned forward. Anna, she said firmly, you are doing the right thing. And you need to hear this clearly. Daniel's actions are crimes. You are not the one who should be afraid. The weight in my chest loosened, just a little. Then they showed me something I wasn't expecting, a printed sheet of transactions that included Western Union transfers, visa application fees, payments for consulting, phone recharge purchases, embassy appointment charges, travel advance refunds. Every one of them linked to Daniel. Everyone tied to a woman's name. Everyone a pattern. This, Tanner said, is what exposes men like him. And then he said the line that changed everything. We're preparing a warrant. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the words settle. A warrant, a real one, for him, not for me, for him. When I returned to the shelter that evening, the staff noticed the difference in my face. You look lighter, Carla said gently. I don't know, I replied. Maybe I'm just breathing for the first time. That night, as women cooked lentils in the communal kitchen and soft laughter echoed faintly down the hallway, my phone buzzed with another message from Daniel. But this one was different, not a command, not a threat, not an insult, just one sentence. I know where you are. My blood turned to ice. I stared at the message, my chest tightening. Before I could spiral, Carla stepped beside me and read the screen. You need to forward that to your lawyer, she said calmly. Right now. I did. Within minutes, the lawyer replied, Do not respond. This message will be added to the case. You're safe. He's panicking. And that's when people like him make mistakes. I didn't sleep much that night, but I didn't feel helpless either. Just alert, ready, waiting for the next shift in the story, and it came faster than anyone expected. 2 mornings later, while I was helping another woman fold blankets, my lawyer called again. Her tone was different, more focused, more urgent. "Anna," she said, "they executed the warrant." My breath caught. She continued, "Daniel was arrested this morning." My hand flew to my mouth. "How?" I whispered. "Tried to flee," she said. "He crashed his car. They found multiple passports in his apartment, including one that belonged to a woman who left 2 years ago." My knees nearly gave out. Carla steadied me. "And Anna," my lawyer added. "They also found your passport." I sat down hard. She kept going. "They recovered documents, financial logs, messages, false paperwork, and notes about the women he brought here. He kept files, names, dates, plans. It wasn't just a relationship. It wasn't just manipulation. It was an operation. And the case is bigger than we thought," she said. "He has victims in 3 cities, possibly more." I felt dizzy. This man I had trusted, this man who made me eggs in the morning and told me I was his future, had built a small empire of exploitation, and it was collapsing. All of it. Because I walked out. Because I told the truth. Because I didn't break. Daniel's arrest made the local news. A quiet segment at the end of the broadcast. Man detained for immigration fraud and coercive control. Multiple potential victims. His mugshot appeared, eyes hollow, jaw tight, the charm completely gone. The comments online exploded. Some recognized him. Some claimed they had seen him with different women. Some said they always suspected he was too smooth. The image he'd curated for years, the successful immigrant, the charming boyfriend, the helpful guy, began to collapse publicly. Even his friends deleted him on social media. That was the first crack. The legal one had already landed. The financial one was coming next. But the social one? That was the one he feared most. He had built his identity like a mask, and now everyone could see the face underneath. But it wasn't over, not yet. The agencies contacted the shelter again. "Anna," they said, "we need you to testify." Not in public, not in court, not yet. First in a protected statement, then later in a recorded deposition. The idea terrified me. My voice would help decide his fate. But they explained something clearly. "You're not just a victim," one investigator said. "You are a key witness in a case that protects other women." And when I sat down in that small room, across from the camera, across from the officer recording my words, something inside me steadied. This wasn't fear anymore. This was justice, real justice, slow, documented, paper-heavy, cold as steel, but justice. And when I finished, the lead investigator said, "You just helped close the door he's been slipping through for years." I exhaled slowly. It didn't feel like victory yet, but it felt like direction. That night, lying in the shelter bunk bed, I stared at the ceiling and whispered to myself, "You're not nothing." The exact opposite of what he always said. "You're not nothing." I was here, breathing, safe. And Daniel? He was sitting in a cell, facing charges he couldn't charm his way out of. Immigration fraud, passport withholding, financial coercion, harassment, identity document possession, false documentation, threats, all papered, all organized, all undeniable. Because I walked away, because I refused to disappear quietly, because the truth, once written down, weighs more than fear. Here we go, continuing seamlessly, cinematically, in full storytelling prose. No summarizing, no skipping, just the story unfolding exactly the way a revenge audience loves. Slow burn tension, escalating exposure, multi-directional collapse. 2 days after Daniel's arrest, I sat in the shelter cafeteria with a warm bowl of soup between my hands. The steam curled upward, fogging my glasses slightly, and every spoonful felt like I was feeding a part of myself I had forgotten. A quiet part, a tired part, a part that hadn't had a name for months. Carla walked over, sat across from me, and lowered her voice. "Your lawyer called," she said. "There's more. More." My stomach tightened, not with fear this time, with a strange, cautious anticipation. "What happened?" I asked. She hesitated. "He's trying to get out." Of course he was. Daniel wasn't built to sit in silence. He wasn't built to be powerless. His entire identity depended on having someone beneath him. "What is he saying?" I whispered. Carla folded her hands. "He claims you framed him." I let out a breath that wasn't quite a laugh, too tired for that. It was more of a broken exhale. "He says," she continued, "that you took advantage of his kindness, that you used him for a visa, that the documents in his apartment weren't his." I stared at her, stunned by the absurdity of it. He was doing what people like him always do, blame the person who escaped, rewrite the story, cast himself as the victim. But Carla wasn't finished. "He's also claiming that you stole his money." I blinked. "What money?" I asked. She shrugged slightly, her lips pressing together. "There is no money, but he's trying everything." She paused. "He doesn't understand yet how deep the case is." I set the spoon down. "What did the investigators say?" Carla gave a small smile, the kind that says he's already lost and he doesn't know it yet. "They said his lies made things worse." I felt something uncoil inside my chest. "What do you mean?" I asked. She leaned closer. "When someone lies during an active fraud investigation," she said, "the investigators don't get confused." "I know," I replied. "They get curious." "And Daniel," she said softly, "just opened the door to every corner of his life." 2 hours later, my lawyer called to explain everything. "Anna," she said, "Daniel has made several major mistakes, and each one created a new legal problem for him. What did he do?" She took a breath. "Let's start with the simplest," she said. "He claimed the passports found in his apartment were items women left behind." "That's not true," I said immediately. "We know," she replied, "but even if it were true, possession of other people's passports without legal justification is classified as document abuse and can be treated as trafficking related." I froze. Trafficking. "Wait," I whispered. "Are they calling it?" "No, not officially. Not yet," she clarified. "But the charge is in the family. It's serious." My throat tightened. "And it gets worse for him," she added. "He claimed you were planning to marry him for documents, but investigators already pulled his messaging history from the cloud backup." My eyes widened. "His messages?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "The ones he thought he deleted." My breath caught. "We have records," she continued, "of him admitting to bringing multiple women here, promising visas, withholding passports, asking for money, and bragging about being able to control immigrant girls." I felt the air leave my lungs. "So he exposed himself," I whispered. "Yes," she said. "He did." This man, this arrogant, manipulative man, had essentially written his own confession across months of messages. But the real damage, she continued, was what he said during intake at the station. I leaned forward. What did he say? He told officers that you were unpredictable, that you liked drama, that you were the type to run to the police for attention. I stared at the wall. He said that? Oh, he was so predictable. My lawyer cleared her throat. When asked if he ever raised his voice or threatened you, she said, he told them he only warned you about the risks of running away. I closed my eyes tightly. That's the problem, she added, because an officer asked, warned her about what? I felt the hair on my arms stand. And Daniel said, she finished, about deportation, that she should be grateful I took her in. My entire body went still. He said it, out loud, to law enforcement. He confessed to the core of his control, not in a moment of pressure, not in panic, in arrogance. He basically described immigration coercion, my lawyer said, exactly what the law considers abuse. I sat in silence, my heart hammering in a slow, heavy rhythm. And the best part? She said. What? I whispered. He didn't realize it. For the next 2 weeks, everything moved like a slow-motion avalanche. Every time Daniel tried to defend himself, he buried himself deeper. Every lie he told contradicted something else he'd already said. Every excuse he offered uncovered another victim. Every attempt to spin the narrative revealed a pattern investigators could trace. The more he struggled, the more the trap closed. And the best part? I wasn't even in the room while it happened. I was sleeping in a warm bunk, eating meals at the shelter, learning to breathe again. While he, a man who depended on controlling everyone around him, lost control of everything. When investigators looked into how he funded his apartment, his car, the gifts he used to lure women, they found unreported income, fake consulting fees, a ghost shell business that existed only on paper, bank transfers with women's names attached, suspicious deposits right before each visa application, tax filings with numbers that didn't match his lifestyle. My lawyer explained it bluntly. He's going to owe money he can't pay, she said, a lot of it. What happens if he can't pay, I asked. He will be fined, she said, and the government will seize whatever assets are in his name, his car, his accounts, anything he owns. I stared at the table. This man, who once bragged about his apartment view, his shiny car, his expensive shoes, was going to lose everything. Not because I took revenge with fire or anger, but because the truth, in paperwork form, was heavier than his lies. The news story grew. A second station covered it. Then a local paper. Immigration exploitation, visa fraud, coercive control. His face blurred across headlines. I didn't read the comments, but one of the women at the shelter did. They're destroying him, she whispered. People who knew him are saying they suspected but didn't want to get involved. Others are saying they warned women about him. Daniel had spent years building a good guy image. He curated it, polished it, protected it fiercely. Now, it took 48 hours for it to evaporate. His friends unfriended him. Co-workers distanced themselves. The landlord revoked his lease. His online groups banned him. His dating profiles were flagged. His image, the thing he valued more than compassion or decency, was shredded beyond repair. But the moment his world truly cracked, the moment his downfall went from bad to irreversible, came the day the legal clinic received a file from investigators. Carla handed it to me gently. Anna, you need to see this. Inside was a printed transcript, a conversation between Daniel and the friend he'd been messaging for months, the man named Gordo, the one who asked him things like, "How's the new one? You moving fast or slow?" Marriage or just work? How much can you get her to send? But this time, the messages were different. They weren't bragging. They weren't jokes. They were panic. Gordo, bro, what's happening? Gordo, is it true? Gordo, they said cops came. Gordo, did they take your phone? Gordo, delete messages, delete everything. Daniel, shut up. Daniel, they're lying. Daniel, it's that girl. Daniel, the new one. Daniel, she's playing victim. Daniel, she went to the police. Daniel, she ruined everything. Gordo, bro, you should have been more careful, Daniel. I was. Daniel, I kept her passport. Daniel, I kept her paperwork. Daniel, I gave her everything, Daniel, and she did this to me. I stared at the page until the words blurred. There it was, his confession, in his own typing, not forced, not manipulated, just the truth spilling out because he was finally afraid. He wasn't worried about jail, not at first. He was worried about me, the one he thought he owned, the one he thought was obedient, the one he thought needed him to survive. He never imagined I would be the one to dismantle him. When the lawyer saw the look on my face, she spoke softly. Anna, she said, this message, this line right here, this is the one that ends him. She pointed to the sentence. I kept her passport. He admitted it, she said. He admitted to the core of the crime. I covered my mouth with my hand, not with fear, but with something close to disbelief. He had undone all his lies with one panicked message, and investigators were thrilled. We won't need to fight, my lawyer said. He gave us everything. A week later came the immigration collapse. He will not be allowed to sponsor anyone ever again. He will not have access to any visa processes. He is barred from employment related to immigration. He is facing removal proceedings after serving his sentence. In simple terms, he would lose his freedom, then his status, then his right to stay in the country. He would be deported, not me, him. The man who once used the word deportation as a knife would be cut by the blade he sharpened. And the final blow? He didn't know any of this yet. When he learned the truth, when everything hit him at once, it would hit him alone, in a cell, without the women he once controlled, without the friends who once enabled him, without the money he once flaunted, without the smooth charm he used as armor. Just Daniel, absolutely. Here is the final part, tied together smoothly, cinematically, emotionally, and with the deeply satisfying revenge payoff your audience wants. No summarizing, no rushing, just the conclusion unfolding the way a great revenge story should. The day Daniel finally faced the court, the sky was gray, not stormy, not dramatic, just gray, the kind of muted color that matches the mood of a man who has run out of luck. I sat in the back of the courtroom with my lawyer. I wore the only nice outfit I owned, simple black pants, a sweater donated by the shelter, boots that didn't slip on the floor. My hair was pulled back. My hands were steady. For the first time since stepping into this country, I felt whole. Carla squeezed my shoulder from behind. You're doing the right thing, she whispered. I nodded. I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel heroic. But I felt present, fully, completely, finally. The door opened. Daniel walked in. The man who once held my passport like it was a leash now wore handcuffs. His beard was overgrown. His hair was messy. His eyes darted around the room, not for me, not for comfort, but for control. And finding none, his face twisted with panic. He looked smaller than I remembered. smaller than the man who lectured me about gratitude, smaller than the man who told me I would be nothing without him, smaller than the man who bragged to his friend about locking me in. When he saw me sitting in the back, he froze. For a moment, his expression cracked into shock, then disbelief, then something close to hatred, but not anger, fear, real fear, the kind that comes only when the person you underestimated stands taller than you thought they could. His lawyer leaned in, whispering urgently, face tight. Daniel shook his head. He kept shaking it, like the truth was too heavy to fit inside his skull. The judge entered. The room rose, and Daniel's downfall began. The prosecutor spoke plainly, opening a binder filled with evidence. Your Honor, this case involves a repeated pattern of coercive control over immigrant women, manipulation of legal documents, passport withholding, fraudulent visa schemes, and financial exploitation. Daniel flinched. The defendant targeted women from vulnerable backgrounds, brought them here with false promises, isolated them, and used their immigration status as leverage. More flinching. We have evidence of payments, false documents, text messages, witness statements, and electronic communications that show the defendant intended to manipulate and control these victims. The judge nodded slowly. Then came the part Daniel dreaded most. The victims were acknowledged, not by name, we were protected, but as a collective. The court recognizes the bravery of the victims who came forward, the prosecutor added. Their testimony aligned almost identically despite occurring years apart, indicating a clear, systematic pattern. Daniel's jaw tightened. He finally understood. This wasn't me versus him. This was us versus him. All the women, all the stories, all the evidence. Together we were stronger than he ever imagined. His lawyer attempted a defense, a weak one. She is lying. She used him for a visa. He was just helping women in need. The documents weren't his. But every time the defense spoke, the prosecutor simply turned another page, another screenshot, another transfer record, another message of him bragging, another victim statement, another contradiction. Daniel folded in on himself, inch by inch, like a man shrinking under the weight of his own truth. When it was time for the judge to speak, the courtroom fell silent. Mr. Reyes, the judge began, voice firm, you used immigration as a weapon. You exploited vulnerable women. You manipulated them emotionally, financially, and legally. Daniel swallowed hard. You made them believe they depended on you for their survival. His eyes flicked toward me. And now, the judge continued, you will face consequences for every step of that manipulation. The judge listed the charges, one by one, each one heavier than the last: fraud, coercion, document withholding, extortion under immigration, threats, false identification documents, multiple victims, repeated pattern. When the sentencing came, the judge didn't hesitate. 4 years in federal custody, restitution to victims, permanent bar from immigration-related processes, immediate revocation of work and residency privileges, and upon release, the judge paused. Daniel lifted his head, hopeful for the first time. Mandatory removal from the country. His face drained of color. He wasn't just going to jail. He was going to be deported. Not me, not the women he targeted, not the ones he threatened. Him, the man who once said, without me, you're nothing here, would be leaving with nothing. Not a car, not an apartment, not a woman under his control, not a future in this country. Nothing. When the guards approached to take him away, Daniel twisted, searching the room, desperate for one person to validate him. I didn't stand. I didn't cry. I didn't gloat. I just looked at him, steady and calm. He mouthed something. I couldn't read it. I didn't need to, because the last thing he would ever see of me was a woman who outgrew his cage, a woman he couldn't break, a woman he couldn't silence, a woman who survived. The guards let him out, the door closed, and the silence that followed was the kind that fills the chest, not empties it. Carla squeezed my hand. My lawyer smiled softly. "You did it," she whispered. I inhaled deeply. "No," I said quietly. We did it. All the women, all the voices, all the truths he tried to bury. Together we dug him out and buried him instead. 2 weeks later I received it, my passport, returned to me carefully, respectfully. I held it the same way someone holds an heirloom or a newborn, with both hands, with reverence. It wasn't just a document. It was freedom, autonomy, identity, proof that I belonged to myself again. I traced my name on the cover. "I'm still here," I whispered, not in fear, not in dependency, but in power. I moved out of the shelter into a small apartment with 2 roommates, started English classes at night, found a job that didn't require papers, but did require kindness and respect. Every day, I built a little more of myself, not the version Daniel tried to mold, the real version, the one who crossed borders, faced a man who wanted to own her, walked away, and won. Some nights, the memories still sting. Some nights, I still wake up expecting to hear footsteps in a hallway. But most nights, I sleep deeply because I know something I didn't know before. You don't need a hero when you learn how to rescue yourself. And sometimes the coldest revenge is simply reclaiming the life someone tried to steal. And if you want more stories where the villain falls and the hero rises stronger than they ever imagined, subscribe, stay close, and wait for the next one. Because this world is full of people who think they can take advantage of the vulnerable. And it's full of people like you and me who know how to serve revenge cold. See you in the next story.